Right, so, yes, so Cultures of Remembrance in Dark Times is our first session here in this room. And we have Maria, who's, oh yeah, there we go, straight again. So, sorry, Maria from Educat, who is going to, am I saying that right, Educat or Educate? Educate. Who is going to give this morning's presentation, and then we'll try and field a few questions if we can towards the end. Maria is an Orientologist and educator from Belarus, currently residing in Dresden, Germany, doing political education, including the topic of remembrance work. Maria supports multiple NGOs in Belarus and Russia with volunteer activist work connected with the topics of human rights and feminism. Whenever you're ready, Maria, you may start.
All right, then I start right away. Hi everyone. Super nice to see you. I'm the unlucky one who's the visa, so unfortunately cannot be there with you. But somewhere there is my colleague, also Maria. I'm not sure. Don't see. Yes. So he's somewhere else in there, so that's super nice. So I'll start right away. Thank you so much for being here and being interested in the topic. I did not know how many people will be there, but apparently there are some. So hopefully we'll also have some questions and maybe some discussion in the end. Today I will focus on some insights from two interconnected projects that we did together with all of my former and present colleagues from Educat, and also with a very impressive number of partners from different countries, and in both of these projects we used different digital tools and formats and approaches for remembrance work, and on this I plan to more or less focus today. Maybe another important detail is in both of these projects, even though they were held in different time and with different partners and different coordination and stuff like this, we always kept our focus on underrepresented perspectives of various marginalized groups. So basically that's the thing that unites both of these projects. So what projects am I talking about? The first one is called Cultures of Remembrance, and it was a very long, broader and longer project which lasted for at least 3 years, but actually that doesn't include the whole preparation and planning part before. It consisted of various online and offline workshops, of educational trips or encounters to Russia, Ukraine, Greece, and Georgia. There was a very massive offline exhibition that lasted for 6 weeks in Berlin, and that exhibition was basically a result of us collecting a very impressive number of contributions from people on the topic of remembrance. At first we tried to collect it on our media portal, but then the contributions were so many that we decided, okay, we should just show it to the world and make it a separate project as an online exhibition. And actually there is a follow-up of this project coming this year and next year, so there will be more workshops, more educational trips, hopefully another big exhibition presenting the works of new contributors, and this time on top of our focus on underrepresented perspectives of marginalized groups, we're also adding a decolonial focus. And here, is there something I'm missing? So the very broad and detailed presentation of this project you can also check on our exhibitor space, where Maria and another colleague, Marietta, are present. So there is a printed brochure where you can, in printed way, see the online exhibits, which is also super impressive, and read the description to them, to read about the contributors and everything that we went through during this exhibition, and the media portal and collecting the contributions and stuff like this. So also there are some exhibits present online, so you can also learn a bit more about them in the exhibitor space. And the second project I'm going to present today in this showcase is the Queer Identities in Different Times project. In this project we focused more specifically on gender non-conforming people's stories of the past and of the present. It is also a project with much more digital challenges for remembrance work, as well as more ethical questions like how playful can remembrance work be, because in the Cultures of Remembrance project we didn't use that much. Actually, we also did, but not on this scale, the playful formats. So it was not that vivid, this challenge, and in the Queer Identities project it was more present, and we had to somehow cope with it. I will tell a bit more in details how we did cope with it a bit later. So as I mentioned, the two projects are kind of different. They were held up by, or carried out by different people at different times, but they both share the same focus that we had. So who is remembered and not remembered? How do we build accessible and critical memory cultures? How do we create a space where this criticism is possible? How do we challenge the visual narratives that are pushed on us by the states? And specifically with the last project, how acceptable, to which extent is acceptable the playful and digital formats when we talk about remembrance work. So now a bit more details on each of the projects. So Cultures of Remembrance. As I already mentioned, there is at the beginning there was a plan to have some offline encounters in different countries, then to have a series of online-offline workshops and create this media portal where we collect some ideas that we come up with connected to the remembrance work and different formats of working with this remembrance work. So on the media portal, we had at the beginning some soundscapes, some essays. There was also a small, very, I don't want to use the word primitive, it's not primitive at all, but more or less simple game where a person is walking in Berlin in the 30s. It's rather simple, but actually also was rather challenging to do it. And mostly it was just a person walking through different spaces and getting some educational information. So it was not very, it was not a game in a playful format as we know it, but it was also challenging. So there were also offline workshops. Some of them were recorded, so you could find also recordings on this media portal. And then at some point we had 3 or 2 educational encounters. People were contributing with different kinds of contributions. Sorry for repeating the word. At some moment we decided that it should be presented in a bigger scale, in a different format, and that's how we came up with an idea to make this online exhibition. The bigger dream of us is to make this online exhibition a traveling exhibition, maybe in a shorter format, because the way we did it in Berlin, it was very, very big, with a lot of efforts of very few people that were engaged in the process. So yeah, maybe we make something smaller and make it a traveling one. Let's see, that's just plans for the future. Yes, so this is basically what we have now in the project. And to talk a bit more now, I will about some details connected to the topic of Holocaust commemoration, because the number of exhibits that we had in the exhibition were not only about Holocaust commemoration, but also on other topics. But since our topic of the EXPO is Holocaust commemoration, I will stop only on the exhibits that are more or less connected with it. So what I will present now, all of these exhibits you can also explore, I think, more or less all. I'm not sure how we managed with the technique, but more or less all are also available at our exhibitor space. So if you want to learn more, you can also check there or on our website. So the first exhibit that I would like to talk about is the video made specifically after the open call for the project by Donka Kiosiva, Liana, Georgi, and Sare. I'm not sure, Ovesi, I think that's the way to pronounce, I'm sorry if I'm wrong. So this was a video made specifically for the project and was focusing on the remembrance of Sinti and Roma persecution and genocide, which is basically not that well remembered, or at least there is not that much focus put on it in the remembrance culture in Bulgaria. So yeah, this is a very nice, beautiful artistic work, which also has a poem to it. Unfortunately, the screenshot would have been too small to show you both. So you can also hopefully see it on the exhibitor space. If not, welcome to check it on the website. Another exhibit from the online exhibition was a Brest Stories Guide. That's an exhibit that came to us from a group of activists in Belarus who made a whole documentary film about a Jewish ghetto that was in Brest in the Second World War, and how basically the video shows or tells us how citizens of Brest, the city in the south of Belarus, were living together with Jewish people who were locked in the ghetto, how they behaved or not behaved when people were being deported. So it's a 20-minute film, documentary, with a lot of, it's basically a guide through the city. So basically you can also get a bit of an idea of what places of remembrance were ghetto, a massive, huge ghetto, used to be, how it is remembered now. Spoiler, it is not. So there is no commemoration space, no specific memorial or something like this. And there was a second video together with this documentary. It's just a number of IDs of Jewish people who were deported and later killed. So basically you are watching at two of them simultaneously while listening to some input. Another exhibit, and I know definitely it is present on the exhibitor space because I saw it in the picture, so it's called Deadly Times Diaries. Originally how we presented it on the online exhibition, because we had a nice privilege of having the touch screen, so it was a proper interactive map where you could see the map of Leningrad of 1940, if I'm not mistaken, and then the group worked with diaries of witnesses who lived through the blockade, through the siege of Leningrad, and whenever in these diaries a certain place in Leningrad was mentioned, the group would put it on the map, and then so when you have a map in front of you, you can click on different spots and read what happened to a certain person at a certain time at this place. So basically you can learn about the siege of Leningrad through the personal stories of people. Another exhibit is a brochure. It is also present on our exhibitor space. It is also available online, so if it's somehow useful for you, please take it, use it. It's a collection of different formats and methods, and tools on how to talk about the Second World War with young people. And basically it's just a collection of different interactive methods and formats. We managed to print it, so now you can also look through it. It has really beautiful illustrations, also made by our collective member, Fine. So yeah, it's our work, the work of Educat Collective, so you can also take a look at the exhibitor space at it. And I think that's the last exhibit from this project that I would like to present. You can also see it at our exhibitor space. It's a work by an Armenian illustrator and artist, Amasia. She drew this illustration as a reflection on the Armenian genocide, which was actually, this reflection was inspired by a poem of a Palestinian poet. You can, I think, read the poem also in the exhibitor space. It is called Who Remembers the Armenians? And basically it is a very mirrored illustration of, it's not an illustration, there are some parts of the poem are the illustration of the words that Hitler used to say about Armenians, who remembers that nobody will remember the Armenians, so it's a deep reflection work. There are so many details on this picture. I encourage you a lot to come to the exhibitor space and look at it and see all these details. And why did I include the work on the Armenian genocide to a Holocaust Expo, Holocaust Remembrance Expo? Well, we do strongly believe that all the former and present genocides are very much connected to the narratives that are existent in the society, all these genocides become possible because of ignoring some of the stories or silencing some of the stories, not remembering some of the stories, and that's what actually sometimes makes these genocides possible. Here I will stop presenting the exhibits from the Causes of Remembrance project. I would just super shortly drop some questions for maybe reflection that we'll hopefully have time later to discuss a bit. So during this project, of course, there were a lot of challenges, and challenges like, okay, how do we make the underrepresented perspective visible, and also visible in a respectful way, and how do we, for example, make the works accessible, so people who could not be present in Berlin when the offline exhibition was there and could be seen on the spot. Is it possible now to have the same effect when people look through it online? Does the brochure, for example, play some role? Does it also have the same effect? And do digital tools actually help, or they are only a nice add-on, and actually nothing can compare with the offline presence in the exhibition, and so on. And of course, very big questions for us were questions of accessibility. They were present on every step of the project, simple language, transcripts, translations, subtitles to the videos, everything, explaining the background. There were a lot of challenges like this. Also, us having multiple languages, Russian, English, and German. There are also very complicated ways how to translate gender neutrally, for example. So yeah, challenges like that. Hopefully you'll have some questions. Feel free to ask them in the end. I will now proceed to the second project and add more challenges so that we have more to discuss. So the second project was Queer Identities in Different Times. This project finished just recently, basically in December, but to be honest, the last finalizing steps were done just recently, like in June, May, when we managed to finalize everything in a proper way that we are satisfied with it. This project focused specifically on gender non-conforming people's stories remembrance, trans and queer remembrance, intersectional approaches to remembrance, resistance and survival. We focused a lot on continuities between the past and the struggles of gender non-conforming people nowadays. So this was basically the focus, and now I will tell a bit more about the work pieces that were done. So the first one, sub-project as we call it, was an online exhibition called Spectrum of Injustice. It is available in English and in German, and it is telling us about the gender non-conforming lives under the Nazi rules and different form of persecution of gender non-conforming people during the Nazi rule. This work was a massive research with a lot of materials from the archives, a lot of materials that are only available when you pay a lot of money. And we got lucky that we had some partnership with some organizations that were able to help us with this, because we couldn't cover some of the money with our main funding that we had. So there is, for example, in this exhibition, a video present that is now stored only in the video archive of some video company in Germany. And this is a very important piece of evidence of a person actually saying how a person who survived the concentration camp and was a witness to a persecution of a trans person in this concentration camp. And he shares so sincerely his ideas, and then the person who takes an interview is just like basically ignoring and not paying attention so much. So it's like a very important piece of evidence, and it's just locked behind some video company's archives and nobody has access to it, but we managed to get it, so it is present in our exhibition. Super proud of it. The work, the whole project, the exhibition, sub-project, the exhibition was done by trans historian Kai Brust, with whom we worked very closely in this project in general. And just a small thing that we're a bit proud of, this exhibition was mentioned by Joanna Astrowska during the report in UN on queer people persecution topic, when there was a discussion. Joanna mentioned this exhibition as a very nice database of knowledge on the topic, so we are very proud of this. Another sub-project is a hybrid city walk in Berlin on trans history during the Nazi rule. It is based on a biography of only one person, of a biography of Peter Bogali, a trans woman. With this project, we have a very big potential because it has an infrastructure that is basically possible to fill in with any material on any walk in any place of the world. So there is basically like a carcass, yeah. So if you, for example, have a walk that you did in whatever country, in whatever city, and you think it would be nice to put on the website on the topic, you can approach us and we can just put it inside this infrastructure, and the walk would be just available digitally, or it can also be done physically, like this walk, for example. There are both options how you can make it. It is also modifiable for groups. For example, if there are, I don't know, if there's a group of 40 people and it's actually a bit uncomfortable to work all together, so you can split into 4 groups of 10 people, and then each group, there is an option to make for each group different version of the walk. So the stops can be randomized so that not all 10 people walk the same route at the same time. So at the moment with our city walk based on the biography of Kate Jorigali, we don't have it because for the biography it was very important to keep the stops linear and not just, I don't know, randomly go to the place where she was prosecuted and then to the place where she changed her name. So it was important to keep it linear, but for other walks it might not be that important. So yes, we're very proud to have this infrastructure. We also make the code open source, so like if people have an idea but want to do it themselves and put it on their website, we would also be happy to share it and not just keep it to ourselves. The big challenge here with this walk for us is the accessibility, because doing the walk physically, it takes, well, depends, but at least 2 hours to move between the stops. And unfortunately, the walk is not very accessible, wheelchair accessible, for example, in Berlin. So there are some challenges that had to be taken into consideration. The third sub-project was a quilt, a Belarusian quilt of queer pride. And this is a sub-project that was focusing on present, or like how we can see the continuities between the struggles in the past and the struggles that are happening in the present. This quilt is handmade. Each patch was made by a single participant of a workshop that took place offline in Vilnius, Warsaw, and Minsk. And so this is a reflection of Belarusian queer community on how and where they can get the empowerment to go on with the struggles they are facing nowadays. And we were super lucky that when we were closing presenting the results of the project in Berlin, a representative of our partners, organization Prismatica, they managed to bring the quilt physically, so we actually were able also to see it in person. So that was really nice. And actually, this sub-project is one of the reasons, only one of the reasons, there were many, why we decided in the middle of the project to change the name of the project. Originally, when we applied, it was Queer Identities in the Darkest Times. And then at some point we thought, okay, well, if we call, which of course, the National Socialism in the Second World War is the dark time, there is no doubts about it, but when we say the darkest, we a bit undermine the struggles that people might be going through nowadays, or were going through before National Socialism, and we're just not aware of it. So we decided for different instead of darkest, and this sub-project was also one of the reasons, because it deals with the present and kind of made us reflect. a bit more. And the fourth sub-project, which was finalized just recently and still has some debugging that needs to be done in it, but we're super proud because this is actually a point-and-click adventure, which took a lot of time, took much more time than we expected and planned. So when we closed the project, we unfortunately were able to present just the scenario, the basic start, what we started to do in December, so we did not have enough time to finalize it, and now we finally did it. So what is it? It is an interactive adventure on gender non-conforming people's stories. So the story in the adventure is a fictional one, so there is no real person's story behind it. But when the player interacts with different objects in the game, for example, you can see these objects in the picture. There's like some bag or some business card. I'm not sure if the cards from the service also called business cards, I guess. So when you interact with different objects, you get some background information on the lives of gender non-conforming people during National Socialism. So it's not about a single person's life, it's the topic that covers generally the gender non-conforming lives of people during this time. So this game, this adventure, this was also a struggle for us. Shall we call it a game when it actually has so many trigger warnings and deals with such a sensitive topic, and calling it a game didn't really feel right. So we decided for adventure, which is also kind of, when you hear adventure, it's something exciting and something that is supposed to be joyful, and that is not really true when you go through this digital product we did. But yeah, so there were different struggles. We are super proud that we finally managed to do it. There was a massive work done by our collective member Fine, because everything in this game is drawn by hand by Fine. And this is very, very impressive and also really, really cute, because there is a cat in the game and you can interact with the cat and the cat is walking around, and this is very, very, very amazing. Small, not a teaser, but yeah, okay, let's call it a teaser. So there is an overview of the game available on our exhibitor space also. And I'm not sure how it is with the sound, but there are subtitles, so you can also check parts of it. There is also a link to this overview on the website of the project. So unfortunately now the game is only available on Linux. So we were happy to finish it at least to some extent, so that we can actually open and play and push the play button. And hopefully it will be transferred and will be available for everyone. So unfortunately not everybody can play it now, but at least we have something to show, and we're already super proud that we managed that. All of the sub-projects that I mentioned, so the point-and-click adventure overview, the Glittering Quilt of Queer Pride, the City Walk, the Spectrum of Injustice exhibition, in this or that way are present in the exhibitor space. So there are either QR codes which you can scan and check online, or you can you can watch the videos, the presentation, and stuff like this. There are also amazing cards, postcards that were made with the project's logos. So yeah, feel free to check those. It's nice. I think I will stop here with describing the projects and what has been done there, and now move a little bit on the meta level, let's call it like this. So in this project, we used, as you could see, different methods in digital formats. So online exhibitions, city walks, location-based experiences. There was storytelling included. There were some interactive playful formats like game design or multimedia portal. There was a workshop program. There were encounters or like educational trips were offline, but also they included an online workshop program, so the people who were not able to go on the trips, they could at least participate in the online workshops or contribute with their own reflection or ideas for the media portal. So the formats and approaches and methods could be absolutely unlimited and various, and there is literally almost no limit to it. It could be comics, it could be zines, it could be diary readings, it could be all different kinds of approaches, and all of them tackle different aspects and could put focus on certain topics from maybe a different perspective. And of course, all of these approaches, even though they are so different and so diverse, they all have more or less the same purpose. To make memory culture more accessible and engaging, especially when we talk, of course, about digital, different digital tools. Especially, we found it effective to attract more young people to this topic when we used digital formats, or for example, when it was an offline workshop and young people just took part in the workshop, so it was not digital per se, but they knew that they are creating a content for a digital tool. In that case, it was Point&Click Adventure. So that's how we managed to attract more young people. It somehow is more appealing for them. And also for queer audiences. So sometimes the places that are important for queer remembrance are unnoticed, and to attract more attention, not only of queer communities, of generally the community, it's also nice to sometimes put focus on it. And yeah, like we did the city walk, I think it changed a bit. We got the feedback that it changed a bit the perspective of the city understanding for some people. Let's call it like this. And of course, one of the main goals is to promote dialogue and critical attitude to official remembrance narratives. That was always present in our work, no matter what project or sub-project or mini ideas we had, because basically all the topics that we worked with, or everything that we did, we would always encounter this idea that, okay, but actually, officially, or like, but actually in that country, la la la. So this topic of making transnational remembrance possible when there is no nationalistic view or narrative on some certain topic was always present in our work. And yeah, that's also the reason why we mostly focus on marginalized groups' perspectives, because they are mostly underrepresented or not that well remembered. I already mentioned the challenges that we encountered and had to struggle with, but maybe once again, super shortly, I will stop there. So the biggest challenge, for example, in the last project with Queer Identities for us was that we worked, or our partners worked with the biographies of people who are already dead. So we actually had no opportunity to ask, is that okay if we make your biography a city walk? Which actually is a good question. Nobody gave us permission for that. For example, with the diaries that I mentioned when we did an interactive map of Leningrad siege, we actually contacted the relatives and asked for permission, but it's also not exactly the same relatives and actually the person. So yeah, challenges like this were present. It's not the biggest one, but still. There is sometimes a lot of work with archives, with pictures, with different materials that need double checking, proofreading, and stuff like this. It was also very important with the last project because we dealt with trans history, and with trans history, for example, dead naming is unacceptable, or like we should be really careful with it, especially when we post archive materials, so some of it should be blurred or covered in a certain way. Some materials are simply unavailable. As I mentioned, if we, for example, wouldn't have had this, I forgot in the language of the word, like additional support of a third party for the Queer Identities project, this party that helped us with getting the license for the video, we would just not be able to get the video, even though it is a very important piece of information. Of course, there are always a lot of trigger warnings because the topic itself doesn't matter which perspective we put the focus on. Is it queer remembrance, or is it Shoah, or is it any topic? Always has these trigger warnings, and it's always a very sensitive content. How to treat it sensitively and also on time and also appropriately is always was always a question for us. When focusing on the stories of marginalized groups, it was also important to be careful with the focus, so that the stories, the biographies of these people don't become necessarily the stories of victims, because there was a lot more than just victimhood in their lives. And so just to make it, to not push for this focus so much, or like for the sensationalism of these biographies, but to be more or less neutral when we talk about the biography. I'm not sure it's possible to be neutral, of course not, but just to be careful with this emphasizing the focus. And of course, one of the biggest challenges is accessibility, and it starts from very basic physical accessibility. Yeah, we talked about the spaces, not everybody has a chance to fly somewhere, to go somewhere, and so on, and finishing with language, with digital tools, because for example, when we talk about gamification, when we talk about online exhibitions, we actually, I think sometimes we forget that actually not everybody has a smartphone and not everybody has a cool computer to access this. So how do we, still try to implement digitalization, but also not forget that sometimes it is actually inaccessible, and to maybe suggest other formats how people can learn about stuff. So this is more or less, I think, it from the challenges that I wanted to focus on or to underline. And the last, before the discussion of us, that's the central discussion questions that we had during all of the projects, and I think we'll have during all of the future projects. And there is no answer to this question, so it's like questions to the universe. We're not sure, and we're learning by doing. How playful can and should remembrance of dark times like Second World War, National Socialism be? So, for example, our first really playful approach was with this point-and-click adventure, and here we were very unsure. First of all, just with using the word game was somehow not fitting. Then how do we present the material? How do we present it properly, but also not too overwhelming? Yeah, because it's still something that is supposed to be playful, right? It's not a historic report or whatever. So a lot of work behind it. Where is the line? Who draws this line? Unclear. Is it possible to invite interaction without trivializing violence? So this is also, it was a big question present in the queer identities in different times project, but also actually in the cultures of remembrance. Can playful format be a space of empathy, imagination, and education? So this here we more or less have an answer for, to this question, and we think we did a good job with having this balance of a kind of playful format and also rather accessible educational material or input. It's not just something that we think, we also got feedback that it is so. And the last one is very meta level, very philosophical. Where do we draw the line? Where do we stop? Where are the limits, and who draws this line? This is a very open question, and I think we will just keep learning. All right, so we still have 15 minutes, 17 minutes, that's super nice. And I invite you to participate. I don't think you had time to check the exhibitor space yet because it's really early and you just started today and it's the first day, so it's not like you could actually really see and interact with the projects or exhibits that I introduced today, but maybe you already have some thoughts, feelings, or questions about what I've presented. I would be happy to answer any questions, and maybe we can discuss something in case you do have something to discuss. I guess Ben will help.
Thank you. Yes, I'll just.
Yeah.
I'll try and move this on to so you might get a slightly better view of everyone if I can prop it just under the. Sorry, and that's difficult. I can always. What we'll do is if we'll see if anyone's got any questions, and I can always repeat.
Yeah.
For you. I'm just going to try and see if I can move. Put you on the screen as well. So. I'll leave up your last slide. But I'll try and put it over.
Mm-hmm.
We've got you in a sort of small little window, but I think hopefully everyone can see
It's
it.
okay.
So, yeah, so has anyone got any questions they'd like to ask? If you all need a moment to think, I've got something I was going to, just as a slide turn, we can also, we'll come back to your questions here. So this is very, I'm in the land data team, I work quite a lot on the sort of digital research and technical side, so that's sort of one of my areas of general interest and everything. And I've been working quite a lot on our database, which I'm afraid you're all going to hear a lot about this week, obviously. And I found it quite interesting about how different people either work on their own or have collaborated with other, whether they're industry professionals or other educational organisations. So I was quite interested in, obviously, you've got this range of the interactive exhibitions, games, city walks, and is this something that is all developed in-house, or have you worked with others? And if you have worked with others, I mean, I think it'd be generally interesting any of the challenges, perhaps, and advantages of that you may have come across. I don't know if that's something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good and tricky question. Yes. So to set up an online exhibition, the website, we are super lucky that me and Maria know something in WordPress and Elementor, and we have our constant collaborator, Tima, the person that helps us always trying to set up the website. So we use external help, of course, but also we try to whatever digital formats we use to kind of make sure that we also are able to use them, so that we don't fully rely or like depend on external people, because it makes sometimes things impossible to move forward, to move on. So for example, when we were setting up the online exhibition, there were some minor changes sometimes. Oh, the letter should be capital letter, not smaller, and stuff like this. So we would not ask Tima all the time to make this super smaller changes. And for bigger projects like, I don't know, creating a point-and-click adventure, which actually includes working with the code, of course we also used an external partner, and so we applied for the funding, also mentioning this partner that they will be helping us developing this project. What we try to do when we look for partners is to look for partners with whom we share the values. So for example, the IT Collective, the IT company that was helping us with developing the point-and-click adventure is the Collective. I'm not sure how wide known the term of collectives is, so I will just shortly explain. So this is like a form of organization which is non-hierarchical, without a boss, that shares generally the let's say the democratic values, but mostly it's non-hierarchical horizontal structure without the boss. And also we, even though we do live in capitalism, we do try to organize our activities in a way that we don't always stick to capitalistic logic, but to a bit move out of it. So when we were looking for a partner, we also wanted to not work with a big famous IT company that would do it in a day because they do 1 billion games like this and it's just like another project for them. We wanted someone with whom we also shared the values. And what I can say, absolutely sincerely, we completely miscalculated the efforts. So with the not so big sum of funding, we managed to do 4 sub-projects. This was a lot of work, a lot of effort, and I would say if we worked with an average IT company, we would never be able to fit the numbers. With the collective, it was more or less possible, even though we actually were trying to pay fairly, of course. But still, sometimes the market, and again, this capitalistic logic of IT sphere is a bit harsh for small but courageous organizations like ours. So yes, we do use external help, especially for stuff that we don't know, but also to be fair, the city walk I managed to fill up on my own. It was not super complicated, it was very basic code, and I mostly did copy-paste and just some smaller things from code. But yeah, so this we also learn, so that when there is some smaller changes have to be done, I can also do it on my own and not fully depend on others. I hope that was
yeah.
Answer.
No, thank you. That was really, that was really interesting. No, that was really good. Yes, does anyone else have anything to say? Yes.
Hi, my name is Alina Bote, also from Berlin. I have a question for you regarding the evaluation and the target groups. So you've set up all these, this is quite an impressive range of different projects that you've set up. And I'd be really interested in how audiences reacted to the project and how you evaluate. Because in my experience, one of the things we often do not calculate into a project from the beginning onwards is the evaluation and a due feedback process from our audiences. So I'd be happy to learn what you're doing there.
It was a bit different with Cultures of Remembrance and Queer Identities in different times. So with Cultures of Remembrance, we had a very easily accessible opportunity to get feedback because there were 6 weeks of exhibition that it was offline. And so how we evaluated the number of people that came, the feedback they gave after they visited, because we were present on the spot all the time. So they would come up and give us a feedback. Every time we would not just be there and see them explore the exhibits, we would actually do the introduction. So like walk them through all of the exhibits, tell the background, and so we would collect the feedback automatically after these introductions. There was a number of offline workshops on the spot, the same. People would just directly approach us and give us feedback. And with the second project, it was, I would say, 80%, no, 70% participatory. So out of the 4 sub-projects, 3 were created like from the start with the participants. So it's not us who decided, okay, I think this would be nice to put in the adventure because I think la la la. So this was a group of queer youth that came to the offline workshop. They decided which kind of objects we put in the room, why this object, why they lie like this, what is the idea behind it. So as I said, the game, the adventure, we finished just recently. So basically, like really, it was possible to push the play button just like not so long ago. So there is a very limited feedback that we got. I showed it to my housemates. So for now, we don't have a lot of feedback. Maybe when you look the overview, you could also give a feedback. But all of them, from the beginning, were created together with the target audience. So of course, it will not be a 100% match because people are different, individual approach, so on. But City Walk was created together with the participants. Which stops do we include? What do we ask people at this spot? Which information is useful to get? Shall we also interact with other buildings or like objects around the place and stuff like this? Was also created together with queer youth, but not only, it was more or less public, and the broader public was there. But yeah, this also gives us a bit, let's say, not insurance, but a bit of security that we're not doing something that is just interesting for us, but actually it's participatory. So participants themselves decide what they want to include, not include, how it should look like, and so we provide the infrastructure, the space to discuss, to reflect, and they chose the content themselves. So that's how it happened in these two projects.
Thank you very much. Is anyone else? I think we've got time for probably one more. If anyone's got a
just thank you for your presentation. It's a really impressive work. For me, a big question when we work on this topic of queer stories and trans history is, or I'm interested, how do you did the archive work, because the terms changed. So today we use terms on that topics which not existed 90 years ago, and so yeah, for me that's a big challenge. And also the problem, you mentioned it a little bit with this, you can't ask for you can't ask the people when you do something with their biographies. I think there is maybe the problematic that we frame them in our work in a special way they wouldn't frame themselves if they could, or if they know the terms or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, that's also like a bit of a question to the universe. Yes, we also ask ourselves this question, so yeah, we don't know the complete answer, but I do have an answer for the archives work. So as I said, the main part of the archive work was done by Kai Bust, a trans historian. So they went to the archives directly or had access to the online archives, and all of the licenses had to be gotten. And also, like, we can use these materials only on the exhibition website and nowhere else. It's like also really complicated in Germany. So basically, if I, let's say, a person who has no experience working with archives would just randomly now go there and try to find something, I would probably not manage. But since Kai has experience, or had experience, and yeah, we were just lucky that this expertise was already there. And regarding the city walk, based on the biography of Kate Rogali, the biography or the story of Kate Rogali was also the major topic of Kai's thesis. So basically, it was also proofread, scientifically checked, and the materials were taken from the trustful sources, let's call it like this. So yeah, I would say just without this experience working with archives, it's really, really hard to do it just on the spot. And regarding the terms, it's specifically hard when you work with German archives, because there are also a lot of terms that are just not translatable into English. It's just like, first of all, it's the National Socialism term, for example, that was used back then, and now it's not. It would be weird if you just use it. Not ethical to use it, but then it's important for the historic context. And so we would mention the term in, so like, whatever. We would mention it, we would explain it, we would also mention that it is a term used back then, and the approximate translation would be this and that. And with the terms about trans people, for example, that are not, that were not used back then, but are used by us today to explain the context. For that, we have a glossar on the exhibition, for example, and we explain, okay, so actually for this, at that time, the word was like this. Nowadays, we say like this. So when I say it wasn't massive historic background work, it was really massive indeed, and this glossary is also one of the evidences to that. And generally, I think, whenever we talk about the project or we did the workshops together with the participants, we also mentioned this language-wise that sometimes it's a bit tricky, but I think somehow we manage, and it is easier to read and do the work in German because, it's just, some terms are just impossible to translate. In English, we did our best, and I think we managed, but it's a bit tricky. And the last question was asking, it's And I think it's also connected with not only you cannot ask, but also, I mentioned this focusing on victimhood a lot and the sensationalism, and so it's really a really sensitive subject with a very thin borderline, I think we managed, and I think we will keep learning how to do it better and more sensitive. Yeah, more or less.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid, unfortunately, we're going to have to stop there. Let everyone get to the next sessions. But do go and have a look at the Educat stand, and your colleagues are there, I believe, so they can ask more questions and everything like that. And if everyone could join me, say thank you once again for a great talk. Thank you.